Hi, everybody. My name is David Murphy, and this is another Around the Lens interview. I'm happy to have the filmmakers and actor associated with the film What Tomorrow Brings, Joely and Matt Engelbert. Welcome to the program.
Hi there.
Why don't you both tell me a little about yourself and your background in filmmaking?
Sure. Well, you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So again, I really got the start with it with Joely and Phoebe. Phoebe, who plays Ruby in the movie. Their older siblings, Ariel, Zoe, and Eli. When they were younger, they were very much into music, and I had the crazy idea of creating a television show. And so Ariel and Zoe and Eli too led to Steal the Show, and those were nationally syndicated shows that spanned uh, about 7 years. So at that point, I was really much more in terms of director and a creator of a show. But I found that I really started loving being behind the camera and operating the camera. And so fast forward to a few years ago, I had this idea for this film that we're going to be discussing, and realized that it was time to just wear several hats. But I had a lot of help from the family members, of course, Joel and Phoebe doing the heavy lifting with the acting, and my son doing the sound and soundtrack, and the daughters and my wife, everybody being involved in the film really helped, so that me as being comfortable enough to make a feature film. I know that you have quite a bit of experience, David, behind the camera, much more than me. And really, if it wasn't, I think you might have known this. We shot this movie using the iPhone 15 Pro Max and log, using a B-script anamorphic lens. I wasn't comfortable using bigger cameras because I knew I wanted to be doing the filming, and just with the nature of this film, could we pull that off using that? And I saw your reaction because I know you've seen the movie, so I don't know if you knew that's what we had actually used.
I did
Well,
not know you were using an iPhone, honestly. It looked, like any standard digital, cinema camera as far as I could tell.
well, that's a big relief because I didn't want to detract from the film. And so I was hoping, I knew my son was going to be very honest with me when we first took a look at the footage. Is this up to it? Will this suffice for this film? I think sometimes for different movies, certainly larger cameras might be called for, uh, and and David might be called for. So, but that's sort of a
You let me know. I'll be there.
so that's really my background. It was my first time writing a feature film, first time writing a script, but I've done a lot of writing, and it was something that I felt very passionate about, and felt we had something that was worthwhile to turn into a film. And that brings us, of course, over to Jolie, who can tell you a bit about her background, but I knew she was capable of handling, not only handling this role, but really fulfilling it in a special way.
Yeah, I was signed to a top agent during the pandemic. So I would be pinned to roles and then it would fall out because of the pandemic, obviously. And then there was writer's strike, actor's strike, and I was not getting any work. And then I was really close to getting this one role. And I was really confident I was going to get this role. And then I didn't get it. And that was my last straw. I was like, okay, I need to take this into my own hands. I need to do something. So I went to my dad and I was like, we got to make something. We have to make a movie because I'm hungry. I want to do something. I have to be something.
Yeah, she was done, and that, which I loved. I love making our own things. We did that, of course, with the television shows, and again, from that experience, even though she wasn't landing the roles, my goodness, she was awfully close. And that one she had mentioned, I had actually bought the family passports because I thought we were going to be spending the summer in Europe. So, uh, and why not? I mean, I love being in control of something with writing this film. And of course, Jolie also has a very big background in singing and dance. But I think her singing and acting really rival each other at a very, very high level. So it was just time to make that film.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great, and that's really awesome. And again, I love the fact that this is a family affair, right? You have daughter and you have your son and your wife and everybody's involved, and that's really awesome because my kids are into acting as well, especially my older boy. He's done some theater work, and I actually included him in a short film I did a few years ago. So I love it when you can kind of bring the whole family together. So let's get in and talk about what this film is all about. So kind of give me the general synopsis idea of what Tomorrow Brings is all about. What's the general story there?
In this movie, and I've been haunted by the story of what would happen if children, and it had to be an older sister or an older brother, an older sibling and a younger sibling, but what would happen if they were left on their own and there was no one? There was the parents are gone. There are no grandparents, so no aunts, uncles, there's no friends. It's just them. Could they survive? Could love be enough? Could trust be enough? And how long could that last? And what would be the breaking point? And that's what we really studied in this film. And of course, it's told through Clara's lens, and Joely plays Clara. And Clara's going into her high school year, and she's looking forward to her high school year, but she still knows that her mom's not very well. Her mom struggles, and her mom tells her early on, I'm going away. I'm going away for help. And we watch Joely's or Clara's journey. And again, the audience will soon find as they watch this film, as you did, the first scene, she's writing in a journal where she says, Dr. McAdams says this will help. So we know this young person is journaling, and that's usually for some type of therapy. So every single moment in that movie is uniquely told through Clara's lens. So we don't know what's going on in anybody else's mind in the movie. All we know is what Clara is experiencing, and we watch as that story unfolds and as she really spirals to the absolute breaking point. And then, as a storyteller, as a writer, could faith intervene at that darkest moment?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There are definitely some aspects of the film that are very heavy, and we'll talk about those a little bit later, I think. But talk to me about, because when I was watching the story, the film, I kept thinking to myself, is this based on real life? Is this based on maybe like a real life story that happened? Because it seems so authentic, right? And it was told from the, perspective of a girl who's writing a journal. So I thought to myself, maybe perhaps the filmmakers had access to, this girl's journal and they were kind of converting it to a film. But it basically just originated from this idea of child sort of, parentalship, I guess you should say, for lack of a better term, and kind of like what would happen in the situation.
It is based on a personal experience to a point. And the reason I say to a point was because what I witnessed and what I saw wasn't my story to tell. And also the fact that story was actually very uniquely beautiful, and I think that story actually would be a great story, a great story. But I was from that story, in my mind, it was what would happen if there was no one. And so the story of Clara didn't exist, and Ruby didn't exist in that other story, right? So that and this idea of journaling, I don't know. The reason why, I'll be honest with you, why journaling came in, I had to figure out as a filmmaker, how was I going to transition between scenes? And that's when it came to me, you know what, maybe she's writing in a journal. And I can keep going back to that whenever I need to transition, whenever I need a moment to connect. I'm going to use that journaling or her in her room writing. So that's why that happened.
Yeah, no, I think it's a tried and true story mechanic, right? And I think, journaling or narrating, right? Those are all means by which you can kind of express a story, especially when this one, doesn't just take place like over a day, over a week. This takes place, I would imagine, I think over the course of like a few months, right?
So if we're the first moment, the first time she's journaling, that first scene is obvious. I shouldn't say obviously. It is her beginning her recollection of what happened before, right? So that goes back 3 months, and and by the end of her last journal entry, that's 6 months from when she started journaling because it's in the summertime, right? Uh, so the movie probably takes place over her journaling over a 6-month period, telling the story of what happened 3 months before that.
Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about the writing of the film. So you wrote the film, right, Joely? Or you wrote the film, Matt? Who wrote the film?
Yeah, so interesting. I'll let Jolie explain how she became involved. So I
I do
wrote
want to
this.
get Joely's take on it because you're as a Matt, and as a we're middle-aged adults, right? Men specifically, and we're writing for teenagers and females, and so yeah, Joely, what was your kind of like input into the script, and how did you sort of make it sound true and authentic to folks within your age group?
Yeah, so he handed me the script, and I was reading, and I was like, this is not how I would speak.
Where art thou, father, mother? No, that's not.
It felt very straightforward when I first read it, and I was like, no high schooler speaks this correctly or this properly. And I was like, I'm going to re-say how he wrote this line as how I would say it as a teenage girl, because I was
Yeah.
like, I was 16 when he wrote the script.
Wow.
And
How old are you
so
now?
I'm 19 now. I'm
Okay.
turning 20 at the end of December. So
Wow.
it's been a while. But yeah, so I went through the entire script with him. I was like, okay, this is how I would say this. So he would rewrite it. And that's how I became a writer.
And by the way, Phoebe had that similar experience too, because Phoebe at the time, even though Phoebe had been at this, so
Was she 9?
yeah, she would have been.
So Phoebe is, for the audience, who is Phoebe?
Phoebe plays the role of Ruby,
Yeah.
the little sister. So again, this story being such an emotional story and such a powerful story, the fact that there are actual real life siblings, and Phoebe had the same roller coaster that Jolie had during the pandemic 1, pandemic 2, the writer's strike, the actor's strike, and Phoebe was being called back and forth to New York for auditions. And I remember one time she had a final callback, and the day after the callback, we're still in New York, and everything got shut down. I didn't even know if we were going to get a flight home. So she was up for the task of this too. It's not like, oh, well, he got his 2 kids and they can't act, but he shoved them into this role because I don't think the movie would work. Again, it really did come down to the acting, I think. But they both have certainly that big role in the writing from that very early stage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you would have been remiss not to consult, with your actors, especially since, they're living, breathing the role and, also they're related to one another. Obviously the chemistry there between you and your sister, Jolie, was really off the charts because you both were sisters, and so like I didn't feel at any point during the actual story like I didn't believe that relationship. It always felt authentic to me. So for you two in acting, was there a part of you that had to, I guess, kind of be like, okay, now we're in acting mode, not in sister mode, or did you just act naturally as sisters and everything kind of just worked out that way?
We just acted naturally, I think. Yeah, we both, when we're in like our character, we just are our character. Like the whole time I was filming that movie, I would never really got a break from the character. I was always in the mindset of Clara. And so, which is not healthy. I don't but I just always felt on. And I think Phoebe was too. But Phoebe really was her character. Phoebe is just that loving of a person. And so it was really easy to just act with her because we're really close in real life too. And like in the movie, I would like sleep in her bed. That was real. I would actually fall asleep.
Aw.
I was like, hey, we're not filming now. Get out of her room. No, but those scenes, that's how those scenes actually would come into my mind because I would have witnessed their interactions together. Right. So if it's putting on makeup or if it's sleeping, if it's putting one to bed, if it's just taking a walk. But of course, never seeing it in such a horrible, dire situation like
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
But I think Jolie was able to think, my goodness, if I was in this situation, this is how I would care for Ruby or care for Phoebe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and I mean the idea of like an older sibling having to take care of a younger sibling, that's, a relatively, not say common, but that's a thing you hear about happening. It's not totally outside the realm of possibility. In fact, in my own personal life, there was one instance where I thought my father had died when I was 6, and I thought my mother was going to have to go away for a bit, and that we were seriously talking about my brother adopting me because we wouldn't have my mom around for a while.
How old was your brother at that point?
My brother was 7 years older than me, so he was an adult, I believe, at the time. I'm about 90% sure he
Oh, I
was an
see.
adult,
Yeah.
so he would have been able to adopt me, as opposed
Wow.
to us
I'm
having to be
sorry.
split up and go to foster care. Yeah. So it was a tough time, but again, you never hope to have to. Thankfully, it didn't happen, but it was something we seriously did talk about. And I was very young at the time, so I was oblivious to everything. It was all things being said between my mother and my brother. So in a way, they were protecting me, right? Just the way you're protecting your younger sister over the course of this film, and I think as an audience, you're protecting the audience, from things that happen over the course of the film, because the film does deal with some very heavy topics. So, talk to me from both, writing and an actor's perspective. How did you handle these sort of very heavy topics that the film delves into over the course of its runtime? How did you get in that sort of place as an actor, and as a writer, how did you kind of like, manifest that on the script?
Yeah, so well, he wrote everything. I just had to deal with that as an actor. Like, not deal with that, but like mentally, I had to like really put myself into those scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And so it did take a toll on my mental health during and after the film because it was such a heavy story. And when you really put yourself into the character and into that moment, it feels real. And so like for the scene where I'm like breaking down, I really had to just imagine. I had to like see it, and I those were real tears in that scene.
Well, of course.
Yeah, I mean, like some people use a tear stick or but like it was a
Visine.
one take.
Yeah.
It was a one take, and yeah, it was.
Well, yeah, I'll
I
share.
didn't
Oh,
really.
I don't. Oh, go
I
ahead.
don't think I handled it the best way, like coping with it. If that makes sense.
You handled it very
Yeah.
well. But it was, I mean, she really does look different from the first scenes in the movie to the end of the movie. It was taking a toll on her. I had to, as a director and as a dad, uh, move up the final, getting those last scenes done because I didn't want her living with this with Clara any longer. I mean, she did a great service to Clara. She told Clara's story, and I think it's an important story because I think from what I'm hearing, people who've watched the film, I'm hearing their reaction. I'm hearing not so much, we're gonna, I know we're going to talk about the catalyst for this breakdown, what actually happened. But what was really unique, special for me hearing was it wasn't always the same catalyst. People suffered trauma, and they handled trauma, and they would share stories that were not the same. Again, the same catalyst, but they experienced that same trauma of really spiraling. And how do you find a way out? Can you find a way out? And in some of the situations, it was talking about a sister or an uncle who didn't make it out, right?
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
they couldn't, the help, they didn't think the help was there or nobody did intervene.
Mm-hmm.
So your story is absolutely fascinating to me, David, that you endure this. And as a writer, like she said, I wrote it. Yeah, the scenes I wrote because I had to make the audience understand that she's going through a breakdown. And I like to compare all the things she went through. The audience isn't aware of what she really went through until basically the end of Act Two of this movie, right?
Right.
But she's experiencing all these things still while being with Ruby. And I compare him to a boxer getting body blows. Those aren't the knockout punches, but every single one of them hurts,
Yeah.
and they build up. But again, nobody understands that the full knockout punch happened much earlier in the film, and she's living with something, right? She's living with being on her own and caring for Ruby. So uh, it's that was an interesting part, and she really did. Again, when she talks about that scene, that one very powerful scene, I didn't want to show anything else other than her face
Hmm.
telling the story, because I thought otherwise it could be gratuitous, perhaps. But what is more powerful when someone else is telling the story?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, again, once you kind of know what happens later on, it does recontextualize some of the earlier scenes within the film because you now know, oh, wow, there was a lot going on there. It's a multi-layered performance in that regard, which is, very interesting and something that, if you watch on repeat viewings, you can kind of maybe see like, oh, wow, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye, even in terms of what the film presents. So I think that's really interesting in terms of how you approach that. Talk to me a little bit about working with, teenagers and working in this, you had scenes in schools, or I imagine, or, whatnot. Tell me a little bit about working with the other actors and cast and, just overall, what were some of the film experiences like? Did you have any major pitfalls or issues you had to overcome, or was everything smooth as silk?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. Sir, I'll let you. I'll go first, and then I'll let you share who the other actors were,
Yeah.
because that's also very unique. This was guerrilla filmmaking, right? I used the Ariel, Zoe, and Eli's condo. I used my house. I used
You shot it on a phone, for gosh sake.
I had three. I had three of them. Right, not one, but three. Certain shots had three cameras. Certain shots had two. Certain just had the one, where I was just hand holding. I like to. I do. I don't know about you, David. I'm not a big fan of the electronic stabilizers with pushing the buttons. For me, for this movie, I didn't need it. Walking in the woods, as long as Ariel was holding my jacket from behind, I knew I wouldn't stumble on a tree trunk or go off the path. But used the woods, and I used outdoor spaces. Fortunately, I had friends who own restaurants, and they said, whenever you want to use a restaurant, we'll shut it down. They wouldn't shut it down, but they give me it during off hours. Another friend, certain scenes are shot in a building. So the attorney's office, the toy store, and the room that Graham is renovating, that's all one building. It's 3 stories of one building that a friend of mine let me borrow. Uh, it was, so from that standpoint, it was quite remarkable. You can find locations. The scene where they're walking outside in the snow it wasn't snowing much in Ann Arbor that summer, and I was actually desperate for that scene. And one night we're eating dinner, and I realized, oh my goodness, we got sort of a blizzard going on here. And I told Joely and Phoebe, grab your winter coat and your snow pants. I grabbed the two Coleman lanterns and the minivan, and that was just the three of us. That sequence of shots, then walking from the restaurant to the minivan, then walking in the woods, or not the woods and through the streets. That was just the three of us. There was no other support whatsoever. But
Wow.
so things actually worked well. I was worried about the technology. I was worried that is the phone going to work? You better have a strong SSD drive, because shooting in log, it takes up every minute is 30 gig of space, right? Or more. I don't know. It was a lot. So those are the different technical issues that happy to get into. But lighting, I did the lighting. I used really one basic light, and I tried to use whatever natural light I could find. Sometimes I use those glow stick type lights, which Eli had to explain to me how to even use, because I could barely get the thing to turn on or off and get the right coloring. And so from that standpoint, did I answer that question in terms of how we actually filmed? And I'll tell you one other thing, David, you'll appreciate this. My editor, who helped me learn how to use the camera early on, the other cameras, he said, Matt, please just have the white balance the same on all the cameras.
Right. That is very important. Or shoot raw, so you can at least adjust after the fact. But if you're shooting raw on a flat profile, that should give you enough latitude. But yeah, if you're shooting multiple cameras, you got to make sure all those settings are correct. Otherwise, it's just going to be a nightmare trying to color match.
I'll tell you one other thing, David, that you might find interesting. My son told me on the very first day of filming, he goes, Dad, I don't want to be cutting different takes together, just because the way we're handling sound, I don't have, we weren't using great sound. And I said, it's interesting you say that. I said, this movie really is about letting the actors act. So what it was is each scene in that film was a single take. It wasn't the first take. It wasn't the second. It wasn't the fifth. It might have been the eighth take. but we'd get the scene down the way we really loved it, and then I'd be greedy and say, okay, can we do that one more time? But each one of those scenes really, and from an editing standpoint, it did make it easier. It's an indie film and things can pile up with expenses. And so that was something I felt was a bit unusual too, the way we did that. But in terms of the actual actors and acting with the actors, why don't you share a bit about that?
So those were my friends. They're very talented.
Except for
Oh,
talk about all the things.
My siblings and mom. The teenagers were my friends. I actually acted in plays or musicals with them. Like the guy that played my boyfriend, Emmanuel, we were siblings in a show, and we were in Fun Home together. And so I knew him from that.
That's how she got discovered, by the way. That's how she got the agent to New York, was because of her production of her role.
Wow.
And then Caden, who played Jason, he was the drummer. He played my cousin in Secret Garden. And so I knew him from that. So filming with them was very easy because we were already close and we were great friends.
Although Caden had such a tough time doing it because he really likes Joely. And he has to really be a jerk in this film.
You were best friends in real life.
And tell about Grace and Hugh.
We're teenagers.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I knew Grace since I was probably... I was
very young, because Grace was in the musical theater program at the University of Michigan, as was Hugh Entrigan, the ones who play Graham and Lindsay. So I'd known these people, and they were all very much knew the family very well. So there was already this relationship with the actors. And of course, Ariel and Zoe had roles. Ariel was the school teacher,
and Zoe was Nikki,
who played the bass. So there was a familiarity.
Yeah. And like he was like a brother to me, so everyone in the cast is like family. Like we got along really well. Good chemistry, I hope. But yeah, it was easy.
Yeah, no, I like the, different dynamics you had between your fellow actors, your relationship actor, your boyfriend, and also the antagonist, I would say, and the frustrated guy. Definitely he played that role well, and you have a little action in there, going on in the film. So, lots of different things and elements and layers going on. And, even your the female friend in your band. And, let's talk a little about that because, you're multi-talented. You're a singer as well. So talk to me about what went into the singing process, writing the songs. Did you write the songs? Where did those come from?
So my sister Zoe, she actually wrote the last song.
Okay.
And then...
Well, she actually wrote Not a Real Blonde, which...
during
the birthday morning thing.
Oh, I forgot that was...
You forgot that was in the movie.
Yeah, she wrote Not a Real Blonde, which is like when me and Phoebe, who plays Ruby, were making pancakes for her birthday. That's a song Zoe wrote. And then the last song Zoe also wrote. But Sweet and Sour was someone else. That was our friends Sean and Jill. They wrote that song with Eli.
Real quick, so so she's saying Sweet and Sour, that was the one that the band's singing at the beginning. Not a Real Blonde. So they're all songs that Joely's released as a singer. Every one of the songs in them. So, but with the song at the end, that sort of that cathartic song, we challenged Zoe, who's so there's Ariel, Zoe, and Eli. Zoe had actually taken the lead in writing a song when she was 14. I don't have it right here, but with their second TV show called Steal the Show, and that show was with Jim Peterick, the guy who wrote Eye of the Tiger and The Search is Over. And that song made them the youngest ever in the category of Outstanding Original Song for Daytime Emmys. So Zoe's just a great songwriter, and she knows how to really tie into the emotions. And so that song was really important for that final scene for Joely. But those are all songs, and the song in the credits.
Oh, me and Eli sang a song in the credits. That was Eli's work. Gosh, that's a really good song.
It's a good song. That hasn't been released.
It hasn't been released yet. That's going to be on his next album. But gosh, the amount of times I had to re-record that song. The first time I recorded that song, I was 14, and then he was like, "I'm changing it," and I was like, "What? It's so good," and he was like, "No, I'm changing it," and so he was like, "Okay, this is a new version," and it was even better than the original.
That was a song in the credits. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. This film obviously deals with topics around, concepts like mental health. And so, after having like watched the movie and, what do you want audiences to take away from this film as it relates to things like mental health and, just the rigors and things that life brings upon us?
Yeah, I think it's really important. When I was writing the story, I wasn't thinking about how people were going to interact with it. It really wasn't my thought. I just had the story and I thought it was powerful, but I wasn't. And in a way, I guess I'm glad I didn't know. In a way, I sort of wish I did know, because would I have handled things a little different? Would things have not been as raw at certain times? And I think if I had known, maybe I would have that might have worked against me, because then maybe I would have couched things in a different way. But I think the movie truly had to be very raw. It had to make it the experience to be very true, very honest. So I know we talked before the interview that we wouldn't discuss exactly what the catalyst was.
That's fine.
But
Yeah. Mhm.
there are so many catalysts that can lead to tremendous psychological and emotional, physical breakdowns. And so many people try dealing with it. Some people have support, some people don't. And I guess what I hope we come away with it is that there is at least I hope there's some organization, there's organizations out there, and they have phone numbers and you can call them. And there'll be somebody on the other end and they'll talk you through it and they'll let you know that they're there for you and they care about you, and that there is another way. There is an option and there is some help, and it'll be hard work. It's no easy fix. But so I think that's ultimately what we want to convey is, in our movie, there is a third act, and that third act is optimistic, and it does provide a sense of hope for both Clara and for Ruby. But does that mean that Clara is forever healed? No, I remember there was a Netflix series called Made. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was with Margaret Qualley. It was really powerful, because this was a single mom who was desperately trying to raise her child, her very young child. She had been in an emotionally abusive relationship, but she had no resources, none. And she'd take one half step forward and it'd be like 12 steps back. A tiny step forward and 20 steps back, and you just felt desperate. You felt how desperate she was, and you wanted her to get some help. And fortunately, right, and this isn't a spoiler, but fortunately, right, there is some good that possibly can happen, and there might be a positive way forward. And that struck me, because I don't like it when something's like, oh, all good and wonderful. Although they might look at this film and they might say, oh, it's all good and wonderful, but if they're really looking at it, they're going, it's not all good and wonderful, but there's a chance here. There's a chance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think within the context of the film, right, the Clara character gets very lucky in many ways. And, you talk about there being the need for resources, or people should find resources, or there are resources out there. And absolutely, as a military veteran, I myself have, been aware of resources that are available to me. Many veterans know about resources available to them, for seeking help or getting support, and with especially mental health, type related issues. But it's not about the resources existing. It's about I would say, opportunity of the right people, coming into your stratosphere who can provide you that support. And, in the case of the film, there are those people who come into Claire's stratosphere, which I think, assist her. But I think all too often it's not that the resources don't exist. It's just that people need to have sort of the motivation to use them, or, think that they can even, use them. And, thankfully, again, the film has a very positive, I would say, angle to it, despite some of the very sort of serious things that happen, and so that's great to see. And hopefully it's perhaps a catalyst for others who may be in similar situations to say like, hey, you aren't alone. And, there are those things out there. And, hopefully there are people who can, be in people's lives to help. But if not, maybe don't hesitate to try and seek those resources out.
And I think Clara does that. And I wonder if, again, she has one objective, and that's to care for Ruby. And so when Lindsay, the attorney, comes and is speaking to her school, Clara realizes, wait, I have an opportunity here to ask about guardianship. Sort of,
Yeah.
you brought that up with the conversation that your brother was having with your mom.
Sure.
Right. And what is this word? My dad would always say I was Ruby's guardian angel. What is this term guardian? Is maybe there is a way that I can become even more than just her sister. But she went and she immediately spoke to Lindsay after that. And so again, we talk about fate, but for fate or faith, however intervention is going to work, sometimes we have to take an affirmative step because we're not always going to be found.
Right. No, absolutely. But I still think there is a element of chance that occurred within that, right? The fact that, that particular, person shows up in her life, I wonder, had that person not shown up in their life in the way that they did, would, the story have gone a different route, Maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't. I mean, there's stories can go any number of limited routes, right? So that's the joy of storytelling. But, yeah, you're correct in terms of obviously identifying that piece that, she did have agency and wherewithal, and to make that sort of step is great to see. And hopefully that encourages others to, who may be less inclined to be as motivated to, be like, no, there are resources. You just have to be willing to, put yourself out there and ask for help.
Right. And I think you're right. And that's a problem that Clara has, is she doesn't ask for help, does she? She's asking for information. And fortunately, there is a human being with humanity who realizes there's something that's not right. There's something that's not right. And I also think you're right. And I get emotional when I was writing the story. I'd get emotional. I mean, I'd start writing something and I'd realize tears were coming down. I'd be like, okay, I got to stop. I can't do anything more to Clara. I'm a dad. I've got 4 girls. Right.
Yes.
And you said it could have ended much differently. You're right. It could have ended after what I'm calling the second act. It would have been a much different movie. And it would have been a movie that I couldn't write because it would have just devastated me. But could it be written by someone else who might enjoy that? It very well could.
Yeah.
And her brother was saying, Dad, can we make it darker? I'm like, oh my goodness, son. You're out of these discussions now.
Oh my God. Yeah. As a father myself, like there's definitely that pivot point that occurs in terms of what you can enjoy and what you can't enjoy when it comes to, fictional media, and like films that put children in harm. I do not enjoy because I have children. And so it's definitely something where it's like, until you live it and experience it as a parent, it's a level of, disconnect there is before it happens. And then, like, I was just watching a movie, and I won't, name it or anything, but there's some very bad things that happen. And it's like, I could have done without that, and then still enjoyed the film. So, but anyways, we're nearing the end of our conversation. And again, thank you so much for taking time out to talk with me about your film. Where can people, one, see the film, and two, what are you guys going on? What happened? What's coming up next in your sort of filmmaking worlds?
You want me? You don't know all of it. So, right on Amazon, July 24th. It goes out on Amazon. You can rent it there. It's being distributed by Buffalo 8, which has been a wonderful partnership with them. I know on Fandango right now you can pre-order it there, and then I believe it's going to be a couple months after. I haven't been given all the information yet. It'll go on to more generalized streaming following that. And Joely and I are actively working. We've got a couple scripts that are really pretty much complete. One I thought we would begin filming actually in August, but because the release date of this movie came up much sooner, that is being put on hold temporarily. Mm-hmm. But is that a drama?
No, it's comedy.
I like the way she said, no, it's a comedy.
It's not even close to a drama.
I was setting you up for it. Oh. You were supposed to say, no, Father, it's a comedy.
I mean, I did.
and not to give too much away, but it centers around the making of the worst Christmas movie ever made.
Oh, interesting.
And
I'm
it's
trying to
the
think what movie that is. Is it like a real
Oh
movie?
no, it's completely made by a
Oh,
fictitious character who
okay.
thinks he's a brilliant screenwriter. He's not. And he's got a wonderful cast that he's created that's completely miscast, terribly miscast. And his script writing is terrible.
Oh yeah.
And so it's sort of a fun. It's a bit of The Office meets Arrested Development meets Waiting for Guffman. I don't know if you're familiar with Waiting for Guffman or those A Mighty Wind type of mockumentary type of films.
Very cool.
Yes,
So it's a movie about making a movie.
About making a movie. Yeah, and then there's even there's right, and there's a crew from that's doing a documentary on the film while it's being made.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that style of filmmaking for sure. Actually, a buddy of mine just filmed something in Florida, and it's mockumentary pseudo horror, like mockumentary horror.
Okay.
So like it's like a film crew filming in this town, and like there's about a murderer, and like then people start to get murdered. So
Including the film crew.
what's that?
I said including the film crew.
I don't know exactly. I didn't, wasn't involved in it, but unfortunately, would have liked to have been involved in it, but
I sort of like that.
Excuse me.
Sure.
And so for you, Joely, is basically just kind of working on your dad's work, or do you have other sort of projects that you have going on outside of your family?
I'm hoping for other projects outside my family too. I do love working with my dad, but I do want to like branch out too.
Good.
So
No,
she's
absolutely.
looking for new representations.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're 19, right? So like, are you going to college? What's kind of like going on with you in terms of that
Just
area?
skipping college because I already know what I want to do. And for like this line of work, I feel like it's kind of just not worth it. I don't know. Like no, like people can do college if they want, but like I just felt like it wasn't meant for me. And I'm really focused on like my music career and obviously acting career, so I feel like I just don't want to like waste time. I just want to
The education is definitely continuing. It's just not at on a college campus.
High school, like
you did. I'm very proud of you.
I did.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to be one to tell you like, oh, you got to go to film school, you got to go to acting school in order to do this job. Like, no, I mean, if you can do it, you can do it. Or, there's many millions of different ways. I would say, regardless of, continue to like get acting education, go to classes, go to improv. Even actors who, are established continue to seek acting education because, you can do a certain thing to a point, but sometimes you need like that outside influence to help like push you to different levels. And myself, I never went to film school. I just learned by doing, right? And I think I've done fine on behalf of that. Sure, there's some like institutional knowledge I've had to like pick up over time, and certain things I didn't know until I was on a set. But regardless of that, I think there's unlimited different ways you can get through this, and yeah, absolutely. So that's awesome. Well, that's great to hear. Again, thank you so much again for being on the program. Is there a website people can go to that's sort of like a central repository for the film, or is they just look on?
Thank you for your service, David. I know you're Air Force, right? My dad was Air Force Reserves. My 90-year-old dad was not. Was Air Force Reserves way back. I think before they had airplanes, but you can
back
see
when it was just
film.
the Force.
Just go. Where can we see the film? Oh no! What? Yeah, on Amazon. What's our website though? On social media?
On Instagram. Do we have TikTok?
No, let's just go with Instagram.
Okay, on Instagram, we are What Tomorrow Brings Movie, and that's where you can find us.
Yeah, we try to stay most active there on Instagram.
I don't really know about TikTok because it banned me for no reason.
She had a pretty big following on TikTok, and unceremoniously, just like she was gone.
Yeah.
So she's Joely's on TikTok. You can follow Joely on TikTok. I mean, on Instagram. On Instagram. Cut.
Take two and action.
Yes.
On Instagram. At The Real Joely Engelbert.
The Real Joely Engelbert.
Because someone took my name.
Oh.
They're like, message me if you want your name. I was like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, again, Joely, Matt, thank you so much for taking time out to be on the program and talk about your film, What Tomorrow Brings. I'll make sure to put all the links in the show notes so for people can, find that out and watch your film. And again, definitely a very heartfelt, true to life style story that I think everyone deserves to, take time out and watch. So hope you get some good success there.
I really appreciate you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. I'm Kay. And that's our program. Thanks everybody for tuning in. See you on the next episode of Around the Lens. Bye everybody.